Hi everybody, my name is Ryan and this is lesson 2 of HTML and CSS. In this lesson we'll be learning about the basic minimum required structure for any HTML page. So firstly you need to have a document type definition or doc type, and this tells the web browser which version of HTML to expect in the document. So in this case it's going to expect version 4.01 of HTML, which up until the beginning of 2014 is the latest stable version of HTML. HTML5 is also available but is not yet officially released as a standard. It should be later on during 2014. Now, if we look at this website, w3.org, you'll see that this is the World Wide Web Consortium, and this organization has a purpose to maintain the standard for HTML and CSS and various other web technologies. Standard is extremely important because there are many different web browsers from different organizations. Microsoft has Internet Explorer and Mozilla has Firefox, Google has Google Chrome, and Apple has Safari, and so on. So each one of these companies produces web browsers that are supposed to display a web page the same way, and the only way they can do that is stick to a standard. Another website which is very useful is the W3 Schools website, and this website is not in any way associated with the official World Wide Web Consortium's website, but this website has a very nice HTML tag reference that you can have a look at, and it's all in alphabetical order. So one of those tags that we're going to need to look at is the doc type. And so some examples of different doc types. Here's the one for HTML version 5. Let's have a look at that one quickly. Just going to paste it in here. So you obviously can't have more than one doc type, so you would either choose this one for HTML version 5 or you would choose this one for HTML 4.01. Okay, and the doc type needs to be the very first instruction on every single HTML page. That is compulsory. If you had to leave out the doc type altogether and delete that, that means the browser would not know which version of HTML to expect. So it will then go into something known as quirks mode, where it will just try and guess what version to expect. And that can be very unpredictable. It's not always the same across every browser. So it is very important to always have this as the very first line of code on every web page. So let's look at some of the other doc types that we get. So the first one, as we mentioned, is HTML5, and you can already start using HTML version 5. All the modern web browsers do support it, but some of the older web browsers like Internet Explorer version 8, which is still used by many people using Windows XP, does not support HTML version 5. Okay, so then HTML version 4.01 is the one we're going to use on this course. There are two different versions of this. The one is for the strict version, and one is the transitional version. The strict version is the one I would recommend because it only allows tags from HTML version 4.01, whereas the loose version will still allow certain tags from version 3 of HTML, which is really old. I would recommend just copying and pasting this line of code because to type it out there's a lot of room for error. So just copy and paste into your document to make sure you get the correct doc type. And that needs to be on every single one of your subpages, your home page, your contact page, every single one of your pages. That should be the very first instruction on the page, your document type definition. Some other document type definitions are for another language which is similar to HTML, known as XHTML. Now, XHTML is a combination of XML and HTML. So if you see it, you'll often see this on web pages, especially web pages that were created using Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver likes to use XHTML. The good news is that once you've learned HTML, most of the XHTML stuff will be exactly the same. Alright, so we'll use the strict version of HTML 4.01 for this course. The next thing that the document type definition tells us is what the root element of the document is going to be. So in this case it tells me that the HTML tag is going to be the root element of the document. And the root element is simply the main container of the page. So that brings us to what a tag is. And a tag is basically a marker. It basically tells the browser this is the beginning of something, that's an opening tag, and then this is the end of something, that's the closing tag. You'll see the closing tag always has a / in front of the word. So HTML is all about containers within containers, and so you'll see a beginning of a container, end of a container. Here's a head section, start of the head section, end of the head section, start of the body section, end of the body section. Okay, so the purpose of the head section is basically to define all the invisible components of the page, and search engines make use of this quite a bit. The title of the document is the only real exception to that. It is visible, but it's not visible within the white area of the document. It's only visible within the bar at the top of the page and in the tab itself. That's the title of the page. Whereas the white area of the browser is all within the body section of the document. So head section, think of it as invisible, behind the scenes rules for the page, and body section is the visible part of the page that everyone gets to see. And these are all compulsory. So let's now run this page just to show you what it looks like. So the way you run it is you first of all have to save it. So we save it, and I need to save it with a .html file extension. That is very important. Hypertext Markup Language, that's what it stands for. Once you've saved it, you can run it by opening up a web browser. And with Google Chrome or Firefox, you can simply say Ctrl-O to open the file. And at this stage, I have a blank page because my body section is blank. But I should at least be able to see the title of the document. There you can see Lesson 2, Basic HTML Structure, as well as in the tab as well. Okay. Now, I can put in some content into the page. Let's have a look at that. So you just save, go back to the browser, hit the refresh key, and then you should see the contents has been displayed inside the white area of the document. Interesting thing to note is that everything here is coming out over one line, despite the fact that I typed it over 2 lines. And that is because in HTML, spaces are ignored. So what we do is we have a tag called p tag, which stands for paragraph. And so one paragraph can go inside a p. And if I want another paragraph, I would use another set of p tags. So one paragraph, another paragraph. P is what we call a block container. So everything within that, or a block tag, everything within it behaves as a block. So it will span the entire width of the browser. So now if I refresh, there's the first paragraph, there's the second paragraph. And actually, even though you can't see it, it's taking up the full width of the browser. So it's behaving as a block. Now, despite this, you may remember that in the first paragraph I had gone on to the next line after the first word content. And yet it's still displaying all of this paragraph on one line. Once again, because HTML ignores spacing. So another tag that we have is the BR tag, which stands for break. And this tag does not have a closing tag. So it's one of the few tags in HTML that does not have a closing tag. And the reason why it doesn't have a closing tag is it's not containing anything. There's no definite beginning and there's no definite ending. It's simply telling everything to go on to the next line. So after the word content, we said break, go on to the next line. So there's no container, no definite beginning, no definite ending. Whereas with a paragraph, there's a definite beginning, there's a definite ending. The BR tag you can insert as often as you want, wherever you want. So depending on where you want to break. There you can see. Okay, to refresh, you always just hit the refresh button or you press the F5 key. It normally also refreshes your document. Okay, now the next thing in the head section, which we haven't spoken about yet, is the meta tag. And there are many different types of meta tags in HTML. A meta tag simply means data about data. So this particular example also does not have a closing tag. If it had a closing tag, you would then see a closing meta at the end. But meta is not supposed to have a closing tag because it's not containing anything. It's just stating something for the browser to understand. In this case, the purpose of this meta tag is to define the character set of the page. So this is what we call an attribute in HTML. And this particular meta tag has two attributes. You'll see an attribute always is some sort of word followed by an equal to sign. And then the value of that attribute is defined within double quotation marks. Should be double quotation marks. So here's another attribute called content. You can see an equal to sign, so we're defining a value for that attribute. And then always the value is enclosed within double quotation marks, so that whole thing is the value. Okay, you'll see that it's also color coded. This editor has something called syntax highlighting, which is a great feature. Makes it easier to pick out the different parts of the code. So all tags are in blue in my editor. Normal text is in black. Attributes are in a very dark blue. And then the attribute values are in kind of an orange color. Okay, so your editor may be different depending on which editor you've chosen to use. But you should hopefully have some editor that supports syntax highlighting. Okay, once you have the meta tag in place, the browser will then know which character set to expect within the document. So the question remains, what is a character set? Well, a character set is a set of characters that can be used within the body section of the document. And those characters could be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, punctuation marks, etc., etc. And different parts of the world would use different character sets. So I have, once again, going to take you to the W3 Schools website. And if we scroll down on the home page, we'll see one of the links refers to HTML characters. So if we go there, you'll see all the different character sets used all over the world. And here's the example of the meta tag that's used to set that character set. So when you set a character set, here's all the different character sets. A lot of them start with ISO. That's the International Standards Organization. And you can see that it tells you here which parts of the world that character set covers. So for example, the Greek characters are the ISO 8859-7 character set. So if I wanted to do a website that contained Greek characters, I would need to set my character set not to UTF-8 but to ISO 8859-7. Okay, if I was using Japanese, I would need this character set. ISO 2022-JP. Fortunately, these days we have a more modern character set called the Universal Character Set, or Unicode. And Unicode is basically a combination of characters from many different character sets. So UTF-8 is the one we use as a standard. And by using UTF-8, it means that you could have some Chinese characters on your page, you could have some Japanese, you could have some Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, English, French, and so on. It's a combination of everything. So this actually makes the most sense these days, and most websites will choose to use UTF-8, the Universal Character Set. Obviously, you'll need a special keyboard to type those character sets from France or from China. You would need a special Chinese keyboard or special French keyboard and so on. You could also download a virtual keyboard that you could click the different characters on to produce those characters. Okay, so now that we have the basic structure in place, we can proceed on to the next lesson, where we'll teach you a little bit more about HTML and CSS.